It's kind of nostalgic to see a Madoka Magica series in the opening of a new decade, because when the last decade started of anime, we had Madoka Magica first introduced, and it really kind of changed the ball game of how people really viewed magical girl shows. It really set a trend, honestly, throughout the entirety of the decade for magical girl shows not necessarily being girly, and there was a lot of dark underlying tones to it, and it's wonderful to see that this franchise, this series, Madoka Magica, is not necessarily dead, and that the story, in its own way, still continues to live on and progress. We do know that there is potentially another movie coming out in the future, I heard it a while back, but for now, though, this is probably going to tide us over. So, one of the things I quickly want to just talk about is, what is this, and do you need to watch the original Madoka Magica show to understand what this series is about? So, from the first episode, I want to be honest, I don't necessarily think you need to watch the original Madoka Magica. However, that could easily change as the story progresses, because this is set in an alternate universe. It's a side story. It is not going to be depicting, the main characters of the original. However, there was a brief little image of the original characters appearing in the opening song of this show. So, there is a likely possibility the original cast members could pop up, but like I said, I don't really know at this point, because I don't really know how the game of this really is, which, by the way, to clarify, yes, this is an anime based off of a game. Now, before you start freaking out, this game that this anime is based off of was actually commissioned by Shaft. As you know, Shaft is the ones that created, Madoka Magica. It was an anime original. It didn't have a manga at the time when it first came out, but now obviously it has mangas and a lot of stuff that is about the series. But when it first came out, Shaft owned the rights. They had everything basically, and then they gave it out to probably have a game made of it. And so even though it is a game, it does not necessarily mean that it steers away from the main story or it's not canon. It's definitely canon in its own right. But to get back into it though, I don't think that you necessarily need to watch the original. But if you were to say watch the original, I do think that you would probably get more enjoyment out of this series. Like, there would be a lot more subtle hints and little things here and there that you would appreciate more. I know, especially since I know about the main series, I know about the events, I know who the villain is, I know, what happens to witches, etc. I'm able to appreciate this story a lot more and understand little key signs that there is more going on behind the scenes. And, it makes you just really wonder what's going to happen next. So, like I said, I don't think you necessarily need to watch it, but it would probably be best if you did, because then you would probably be able to appreciate the entirety of this a little bit more. But to go a little bit further though, if you like the original, I think you're going to like this. It does keep the same essence and the emotions that the original had, especially with the music, to the, the visuals, to the voice acting. I mean, there is a lot of things about this anime that came out, yesterday that honestly just reminded me of the original, and it just goes to show that, Studio Shaft has not lost their touch when it comes to making anime. I appreciate it greatly. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to be honest here. I am going to be talking about spoilers from the original Madoka Magica, because since I have watched it, I can't stop myself from talking about things that obviously was hinted at from the original in this. Even though I know I stated that you probably don't need to watch the original, I want to talk about the original stuff that applies to this because it's fascinating, and it's one of the reasons why I love this show and why I was interested to watch this in the first place. So, there will be spoilers. So, to get right into it, I find it very fascinating, just once again, how we see how Chibi is just messing with a bunch of girls that are getting used. And if you remember from the original story, it was basically revealed from the story that Chibi, he is someone that targets weak-willed girls. Girls that are very short-sighted, girls that are in despair and don't really know what to do. He targets them when they're at their worst, when they really don't have many options to choose from when it comes to wishes. He corners them to when they do wish for something. It's very simple, something that will not really use up a lot of energy that they're trying to gather from the magical girls and the witches. So it's fascinating to see all these different wishes pop up throughout the episode that these girls were wishing for. Like they were saying, I want to have have a boyfriend, or, I want my cousin to be a cop, oh, I want, to be able to be noticed, or a completely different person, etc. All these little wishes here and there are very short-sighted, and honestly, it's tragic, because they're giving up their very life for these wishes that honestly do not matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, just to clarify, to refresh everybody's memory, if it's been a while since you watched it, as you remember, when you go with Chibi and you make the contract, you get your wish, you have a soul gem created from, which this episode does kind of refresh you on that, but it doesn't go all the way. Basically, when the soul gem is created, that is literally your very life force within that soul gem, and if your body is disconnected from that soul gem, you will legitimately die. But also, it goes a lot further than that. The soul gem eventually gets corrupted, and there's just nothing you can do, and eventually you will turn into a witch. It will shatter, create a witch's labyrinth, and you will become the very thing that you've been trying to destroy the entire time. It's a cycle, basically. These magical girls are fighting other magical girls that turned into freaking witches, and they're using the grief seeds that they gather from these witches, which are basically their soul gems, to fix their soul gems just to stop the inevitable, basically becoming what they're destroying. So it's tragic. It's very tragic to see that these girls that are wishing for these very short-sighted wishes are just basically going to die for them, and it's messed up. And this is where Chibi comes in as a very awful and evil entity, because he targets weak-willed girls that don't really think too hard about what they're wishing for. He doesn't just target anyone, he targets individuals that he can get away with and not have to worry about their wishes that would overall damage everybody, basically. And so, I find it fascinating just seeing this outlook once again from this episode. So, anyways, let's talk about what this story is about. So, clearly, someone has made a wish, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but someone has made a wish about this city that apparently all magical girls can go to and just not have to worry about being a magical girl anymore. Basically, I'm assuming from the way that's described, they don't have to worry about becoming a witch, they don't have to worry about, fighting anymore, they could just live in peace. That is kind of what I think that this, wish was that made this town happen, and why all these magical girls are having these types of dreams, is because probably someone knows about the truth, someone knows about what really is going on here, and tried to make a safe haven for those that do not want to fight and were actually trapped against their will. They didn't realize what they were really getting themselves into. They didn't read the fine print of the contract that Chibi, presented to them. But, there is another way this can go, though. There's another thing that I was thinking of is that this wish that someone wished for, that they didn't want to have to worry about being a magical girl, I can definitely see this also being the reason why there's so many strong witches within the town. Because even if, let's say, you don't have to be a magical girl, this is a breeding ground for, many magical girls to reap the benefits. Basically, the more magical girls that don't do their duty, and the more their soul gem gets corrupted and darkened, they'll turn into a witch, and that means that more magical girls can target these witches and fix their soul gems. So that is also a likely possibility. Maybe the reason why people are being drawn to this city is because if they do lay down their weapons, they don't fight as magical girls, then they turn into a witch. Even these magical girls that have been there for a while, maybe one of them that made these wishes, has it to where they're able to utilize this to just really get what they want, to stick around and not have to worry about death. So yeah, there is definitely some shady things going on within this episode, and I do like just the little dialogue behind the scenes that's on billboards, etc., that Shaft is throwing in. It's very Monogatari-like. It reminds me a lot of when I first watched Monogatari, because Monogatari likes to hide details in the background with certain billboards, signs, whatever, and you have to really rewatch the series just to see everything you missed. And thankfully, I was pausing the episode quite a bit while watching this, and I noticed quite a few things that this was talking about. There was one individual that wished for the very town that, they're, all going to, that's apparently a safe haven for magical girls. Someone wished for that town to be completely destroyed. Obviously, the town isn't destroyed, but this could be the start of what, that witch at the end of the original series, why it was there in the first place, or how it was created in the first place. I mean, think about it. We do know at the ending of the original show, Madoka Magica, there was a witch labyrinth, like this big witch that was just traveling and going to demolish a city. It was like a natural disaster, and Madoka had to do it, and we know the rest of what happened with Madoka, the story, etc. But the point is, we might be getting the origin story of what created that very imaginary entity. And if that is the case, it does make sense. Are all these magical girls to be there for a witch to say, let's destroy this entire town, etc.? I can definitely see that being the case. So we'll see. But overall, I think, Magica Record, I believe that is the proper title. It is a good watch. It's a good first episode. And if you love the original, you're gonna love it. If you haven't watched the original, which, once again, I hope you haven't continued watching this video because there's a lot of spoilers, but if you haven't watched the original and you're somehow still watching this video, it's definitely worth watching. I could definitely say that it's an enjoyable series, and honestly, I'm expecting great things from Studio Shaft. They always deliver when it comes to trippy animation, symbolic things, and I'm excited to start, Winter of Anime 2020 with something like this. So anyways, I want to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, and with that, Chibi out.